Okay, so today we're having a staff development day on students' mental health. You know, what do we need? What are we going to be looking at? What can we do in the educational background of us to help students overall? And this right here is a graphic that was provided to us at the last training that we did. I got this information from, and it's quite interesting information. Just shows some statistics. On students with mental health, and you'll be surprised of what the numbers really say. You know, here at the middle school, we have kiddos that are in the age of between 13 and 18 that you're looking at or working in or going into, and 1 out of 5 of them will have a mental illness. That right there just kind of gives you an idea. It does talk about suicide on here. Cause of death in ages between 10 and 24. Really interesting. That means like every day that the students in the United States, there are like over 5,000 worth of students that attempt suicide. And that's just crazy numbers. It really is. So what is mental health? I mean, what does mental health look like? What do y'all think? What makes you think what mental health looks like? What kind of jogs your memory of it?
Kids who can't focus. They're distracted because of something at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe they're not clean for some reason.
Right. And like I said, and there's mental health has different meanings, different ways of understanding what mental health is. And one of them, and this right here came from the World Health Organization, states that state of well-being of an individual really comes on to how they handle their normal stress life, on how they're able to be productive and contribute as a community and everything. So that's, I mean, we all deal with it. We all have our tendencies that what comes from home to work for us, but then we have learned to how to put that aside and focus what comes to us as everyday situations. Some kids that we may deal with from time to time doesn't know how to split that, or doesn't know how to cope with what might be going on at home, or might be what's going on in their mind as well. There's also an increase of public health approach on children's mental health, which aims to balance the students' positive mental health, such as not only treatment but promotion, prevention, even early intervention, and education to improve outcomes and health. And what it boils down to is, if a child is having a health mental issue, good communication with the parents of what you see would be good. Don't and I know some parents are very cautious about not expressing what's going on with their child. But if you see something like what a child might be going on, to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing Johnny doing this, this, and this. Have you seen this at home? That would be a good icebreaker of what the parent would be, or a guardian would be willing to provide for what was going on with the child. So ultimately, a student's environment in our classrooms, in the building itself, in the parking lot, not the parking lot, but in the playground area. I mean, that right there is the environments that we need to provide that gives them that safe environment. You know, you just don't ever know what a child, it doesn't have it, they don't have bubbles over their head say, hey, I have issues, you know, or today I have an issue, yesterday I was fine, but today I'm having issues. So we don't know those bubbles. So we've got to just have to work with them on a day-to-day basis. And which will boil down to being supportive to overcome overall life challenges. We as teachers have many hats, and we just have to, we're just part of them 8 hours a day for 9 months of the year, just about. So what does this look like? Mental health or mental illness, you know, mental disorder or mental illness is a diagnosable illness that affects people's thinking, mental state, and behavior that could be also be disruptive of their daily activities. So, this one right here, the mental health is more of a broader term. Confused thinking, extreme highs and lows and moods, outbursts, and that's also going to include your ADHD children keeping focused. I was really surprised when I learned this that ADHD is considered like a mental illness. I was really surprised, but ADD and ADHD is also considered a mental health issue. So then there's mental illness. So there's two different things: mental health and mental illness. Mental illness is going to be diagnosed by a physician or a psychiatrist. Depression, anxiety disorders, and the different kind of just some good examples of what anxiety disorders are: be schizophrenia, anorexia nervosa. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. And bipolar disorder. That's just a tidbit of what kids are going through.
Question.
Uh-huh.
I know that ADD and ADHD are on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that put autism in that mental health?
Yes, it would be in the mental health. And actually, it'd be kind of strange. It's kind of like both of them, because students with autism do have some anxiety issues.
Right.
So then you're looking at they're kind of dual components to that. Also. We've seen or heard kids say or parents say that they are oppositional defiant. That is going to be a mental health.
Right.
That is not a mental illness. So that's another part of a mental situation of them finding ways to be productive in the community.
So one's a diagnosis and the other are symptoms.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
Yes. It's fine. So this right here is exactly what in the book that was provided to us about percentage of youth being diagnosed with a mental disorder, and the ADHD you're at nearly 9%. Our mood disorders are a little bit lower, and then our major depressive is going to be the lowest. But the highest one is going to be like the other disorders are going to be like your autism, your other. Schizophrenia, and you'd be surprised how often schizophrenia is more adamant than what any other major depressive disorders are. Bipolar, and that, so it's going to be in your range here. I was just kind of a little fun thing that we did in our training that we did 3 people, and we did so like the principal or a teacher was talking to a student, and then with me, like I had something like a little funnel, a piece of paper in your ear, and I was talking to you, and I was talking to you in your ear, but you're trying to focus what was going on, and that was just ideas on some mental illnesses have issues with or health, because things are going on here, and you think that kid is not paying attention to you. You don't know what that child's actually hearing in their head. Why is this person talking to you? Why are they wanting to ask me about homework? Your homework, you did it, so who cares? That kind of stuff. It's that mental in your ear, and you're not getting it. And then we like to do that. I like to do that with you at the end, just so that y'all see what it sounds like and what it feels like. It was very, very overwhelming. I'm really good about toning people out. I had a hard time doing that, but it was just because there's this constant talk in your ear. It's kind of interesting. All right. So have you noticed, what was you saying?
Have you noticed that, well, not even noticed, but have these percentages always been this way? I mean, it doesn't seem like when we were in high school or we were even in school period, you had these different mental illnesses tacked onto children. And it was more of a less, if something happened, we were told to, brush it off. It's okay. It just seems like now
we didn't have inclusion as much.
True.
And when I was in school, a lot of these children that we deal with now were institutionalized. All of the children that are out in the self-contained room out there would have been institutionalized. They would not have been in a public school.
The No Child Left Behind Act really included, and then so you might not have seen it, but it was more because it was more pushed aside. Now it's going to be more more to the upfront.
But even then, if you think about it, with the ADHD and all of that, those kids wouldn't have been off to the side. They would have been in the classroom. It just doesn't seem like back then, which was 20 some odd years ago plus, we're not going to go there, but it just doesn't seem like teachers had as much on their plates as we do now.
I think it's
dealing with all of that.
I think it's people are more knowledgeable now. There's a lot more research out there based on. Okay, so you did have behaviors, and people just kind of just said, "Oh, you know, it's okay. They're just having a bad day," everything else. I think now it's becoming more of people are getting really are wanting to know more of why things are happening, and so that goes into your research and all that overall knowledgeable. I guess you could say it's kind of like autism. Autism wasn't considered autism. Autism considered children as mental.
Yeah.
But then later on in research and more into it, they're like, oh wait a minute, they're not really. I mean, they're actually kind of smart kids. They just have issues of how to do it. I think it's because we're more knowledgeable now than what we were in the past.
I think you're right. I had a principal one time tell me that under today's standards, he probably would have been special ed. Thinking about how much he struggled and the hard times he went through getting through school, but here he was a principal. Mm-hmm. He became an educator, and I think it's perception. And back when I was in school, everybody was treated the same way. If you got in trouble, you got spanked. It was just you were expected to make the grade, and if you didn't, you stayed back a year to try it again. Mm-hmm. So,
but I think the numbers here. Mm-hmm. It's just because they're being more identified. There's more of a label now than just, oh, they're just having a bad day, I guess you can say. I mean, that's just my perspective. But it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago. They were institutionalized, and
you didn't see them.
You didn't see them. Mm-mm. So if a kid was having, say a kid was schizophrenia, okay. Now we will see them in our classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Then they were institutionalized. So, and then of course the No Child Left Behind Act. I mean that really brought everything brought forward. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if they have any kind of. That's why we're providing a behavior unit now, right. So pull those kids forward. Okay. Career, I thought kind of fun things that we did here. The teacher, I am the teacher, and she's got a nurse's hat, and she's juggling all kinds of things going on, and then overall, what a teacher really is, she's a comedian, she's a mediator, she's a manager, she's an engineer, and she's just got all kinds of things going on, and my first and utmost is that teachers are advocates for their children, that you have them in your class 9 months out of the year, between an hour, 2 hours, maybe in a classroom, depending on how your schedule is. You get to know that child more than maybe those parents don't get to see as much because how their work schedule is, or what else is going on in the home that you're not aware of. There's evidence of self-help strategies that can help adults, but what's kind of interesting is that there's not very many research based on self-help strategies for young adults or young children. So, we do have some self-help strategies that we're going to go over. There's no research based saying that this is the best thing for them. So we're just using what they use for adults, but we're trying to condense it down for students, for young children. And
okay, there are some strategies that children are taught, like biofeedback and other things. My son that has Tourette's went to a training when he was in junior high with biofeedback to learn how to do that, and it helped him to control his tics.
Oh,
Yeah. So there are some self-help things that work, but kids with their changing hormones and their changing everything, it's really hard for them to stay focused long enough to do it. If you can teach it to them at an early age where it becomes second nature, that works. But a lot of times these kids aren't diagnosed with things until they're pre-teen years, and that's a really hard time for them to be able to control themselves, much less learn how to
express their
self-
own things.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're so worried about fitting in that they don't want to do anything that might make them look different from everybody else.
I agree. My son's the same way right now. I mean, he is. I wish I can get him to start talking more. I can't get him to talk more. He just, well, he wants
Talks all
you.
the time, but he doesn't talk about
Right.
substance. Yes.
Right. He just. Blah, 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 blah. He won't talk. Would you tell me what you're feeling instead of just mouthing? So self-help strategies. And the first one's going to be find an interest in them. If they're interested in music, talk to them about their music. If it's about drawing or writing, talk to them about it. Hunting, fishing, something to that effect. Especially when you're starting to see them being really anxious or anxiety, or you're fixing to say, "Oh, Johnny is fixing to, he's on his edge." It's okay to stop what you're asking him to do and get him to work on something that he likes to do. Give him that 5-minute break, if that means he is drawing, or give him something to write about. If that is something, it just depends on what that child is interested in. And so it's really, really interesting. And then encouraging a sense of achievement or satisfaction. If the kids are in band or in choir, what music did you just, tell me about it, anything else, or perform it for me, anything. Give them that opportunity. Or if a child is just finished a very demanding assignment, allow them to tell them how proud you are, how they finished it. Don't use that time to say, "But I wish you would do this and this and this." I'm going to say, "Johnny, I am so proud of you how you completed this assignment." Yet, we did kind of do some bumps in the road and everything else, but we persevered. We finished it, and I'm so proud of you how you did it. If you encourage them on what they did, you'll find ways that they'll go, "Oh, well, this person's not so bad against me after all." And then socializing, of course, you're in the classroom and you have to keep socializing to a minimum to a point, but maybe give them that last 2-3 minutes in class to visit with their peers to kind of calm their anxiety down. They can take a deep breath and just say, "Whew, I'm done. I survived this class period." And it might be because it's each class period that child's anxiety builds back up for the next class. So it gives them that chance to kind of wind down to get ready for the next class. On this right here, on the interest and encourage, my son had an issue when he was younger, and the principal gave him a piece of paper and crayons, and it says, color out your anger. And I tell you what, he would, because JT was almost to this point of, he was almost about to explode, and he was a little guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that principal was awesome. He let him just color, and he didn't care if it was within lines or not, but he sent it home, and he goes, "This is what I did with him," and everything else. And JT loved that principal. He was sad when he left, but that right there that principal gave him some strategy to kind of, "I see you're frustrated here. Let's get your frustration out."
For so many of our kids, they don't have the right words. Yeah. They don't know the right words to tell you exactly what's going on.
Right.
And so by giving him that crayon, it allowed him to put his feelings out there without ever saying anything. And my daughter does that a lot. When she's feeling down, she'll draw something. Mm-hmm. Something that makes her happy. Mm-hmm. Or something that she saw that day. It normally revolves around cats, but it's something to make herself feel better about whatever bad thing happened to her.
And I know y'all are high school teachers and everything, but have y'all seen students do that on their own?
Yes. Yes.
Y'all have.
Yeah. And it comes down to like students who have taught themselves how to doodle to keep their concentration.
Mm-hmm.
They are also likely to be the ones that are drawing out their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It gets them motivated. We don't have enough students who are encouraged in that way. One thing that we used to have in high school was an advisory period, and during that time we would do little activities with them to help them kind of build self-esteem, talk about, teach them the vocabulary of expressing themselves, and we don't do that anymore. We just focus on academics, extracurricular, that kind of thing. And extracurricular activities in themselves can help, but you get those kids, the bench warmers, they're not getting any glory.
Or the quiet ones.
The quiet ones that sit in the back of the room
Right.
and don't really do anything. There needs to be stuff open, like Mr. Allen's gaming club.
Oh, yes.
That's perfect because a lot of those kids don't do anything else. Mm-hmm. And so that's giving them a place to fit in and socialize.
They're not the socialized. They're not actually really the socialized kids, kind of like the leadership kids.
No,
And
right.
they're not the social bugs. They're the more laid
Right.
back. They're
Well,
quiet
and if you
ones.
go look in the morning in front of the library, remember Tan Rochelle?
Yes.
Okay, he was one of those kids that just didn't. You had to pull him in, but he had his place, and the kids need to have a place that they can feel safe to talk. And sometimes it's in a classroom. Okay, Jackson felt safe in my classroom at lunchtime. That was one place he showed up in my classroom several times when he didn't know what to do or where to go.
Oh.
So, yeah,
He found that one spot.
he did.
Yep.
His shadow taught him to come to my room.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Cool.
Oh, likely to be safe, like an exercise or a massage. Of course, as educators, we're not going to massage children. That's not going to happen. But exercise, I mean, if the child needs a break, they may need to go take a walk to the end of the hallway and back. Say, go take a walk, come back. Okay, this is just something to kind of get you to calm down and ease down before you go any further. The biggest thing is seeing the signs before it happens. That's the biggest thing. These right here are ideas or strategies to help the children before they have outbursts, before they scream and say cuss words, before they just get up and just walk out of the classroom. You know, tell them if you feel like you need to go take a walk, give me a thumbs up, and if I give you another thumbs up, that's telling you go do what you need to do and get back. You know, it doesn't have to be verbalized. Just make those hand signals or eye contact. They can understand that kind of stuff. Changes in adolescence. There's broad changes as we as the teachers see throughout the year. We see their change from the first of the year to the end of the year, and that their physical changes, puberty, hormones going out the wazoo. You know, we see that. The social changes. We see that they want to be an adult or want to go into the adulthood, but they're not for sure how to handle it. Or they're learning how to manage relationships, their friends, or have a girlfriend. You know, they want to fit in with all their other peers, and so they're having to deal with the hormone changes, and they're having to feel like they're a part of their other peers, communication with their friends and that kind of things. And also think about their future careers. They're, especially in the middle school time, they're really starting to kind of think, what am I going to do when I get older, or when I graduate, or when I get married, or whatever. I don't want them to get married anytime soon, but you know, just that futuristic situation.
So I have seen kids when I was in the classroom that you can see the ones that are really quiet and they kind of do their own little thing, and then you see the social bugs, and that's going to be the social changes. But then there are some of them, they get a boyfriend and girlfriend, and you can see an instant change. They are more, I don't know what's the word I'm thinking of. They're more social, I guess you can say. Once they get that companion, I guess you can say. But it makes me kind of scared that kids can say that they or feel that they can be more social because they have a companion other than being themselves. Does that make sense?
I think it has to do with acceptance. They've found that person that accepts them for whatever. I've taught in the middle school as well as the high school, and the puberty thing is really prevalent in the middle school. You'll see them at the beginning of the year, and they're just little adolescents, and by the mid-year, puberty hits, and by the end of the year, they're starting to be young adults, and it's a huge, huge change. In the high school, it's not so much beginning of the year to end of the year as it is year to year. So from ninth grade, when they come in as little kids, and then when they leave as seniors and they're adults. Big, huge changes, but at the same time, it's not just physical changes that are going on. As their bodies change, they take on different roles in society, and they're learning how to deal with all of that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so then there's also, then that's things that we see. So then we kind of see things that are mental changes that we actually don't see them happening in front of our eyes, but we see effects of them, okay? And so like the changes on how they think about themselves or how the world around it, sometimes they don't know how to express what they feel about themselves or what's going on around them, finding those words to express what's going on. They're also at that time, they're also trying to figure out their religious beliefs, what is right and wrong, formulating their own beliefs. So they're in that turmoil of their own thought processes. You know, they hear what we teach them and what the beliefs are and that kind of stuff. And then they go home and then they hear their parents' beliefs. So then they're in that in between of dealing with what's going on with home and school and trying to merge them together somehow, a way to understand it. And then, of course, the emotional changes. The emotions become more intense and quickly to change. They happen so quickly. They contribute these decisions to poor decision making immediately. They're so, what's the word I'm thinking of? Impulsive. That's the word I'm thinking of. They're not stopping and thinking before they do, or stop and think before they speak. That's something that I've always told my children. You always stop and you think before you speak, and you think before you act. Those right there, if they can use those, that right there, that will help with the emotional changes. That's coming so impulsiveness. My own children are ADD and ADHD, so that impulsiveness is there and already there. So I'm constantly saying that little saying to them because I want them to stop before they think and to keep these emotional changes, emotional outbursts happening so often in the classroom or at school. What can we do? And this is an acronym of it's called ALGE. So each one of these steps we're going to give us an idea for the educators to see what we need to do next, what we can do to help the children. Okay. So A is going to be for your action. It's going to be assess or risk for the harm, and it's more or less what do you see? You know, are they harming themselves? Or are they experiencing extreme distress? Or their behaviors is very disrupting to others? You know, and the biggest thing of it is if you see a young person that appears to be harming themselves or others, make sure you contact the counselor and the principal as soon as possible. That's something that's automatic no matter what. Okay. An L is going to be listening, non-judgmental. Listening to the young person is a very, very important action, and it boils down to is if you listen to them. I gotta fix that. See? Allow the listener to hear and understand what they're saying. So if they're saying something to you, kind of paraphrase it back to make sure you understand what's being asked. Make sure it's easier for a young person. It's easier to talk about it freely about their problems not being judged. Don't judge them. If they say something, and don't give them this grimps look. Then they're going, oh, they're judging me. I'm going to shut it off right now. So you got to keep this, and then you also got to think of the student's culture. Make sure you understand. You probably talking to the kids, you can have an idea of what their culture is. So make sure whenever a child wants to talk to you about it, you do understand their culture and their background of it all. G is going to be give reassurance and information. Once the young person with mental health, or you think the child may have mental health, feels that they are being heard, it's easier for them to find ways to support them and give them information about what's going on. We are not diagnosing these children. We're giving them information to kind of help them get through this. Okay, and this might be a part of it as well as reassuring them, but also making sure that they know that they're not alone. Okay, you're in this with them as well. Okay, reassurance is going to be that you're with them, and again, that's going to give them the support. Whatever task that they say it's overwhelming them, find ways to help them get through that part. That we're teaching them life strategies on how to handle life in general. Okay. Okay, there's 2 E's. This E right here is encouraging appropriate help. If you feel that something needs to be addressed, share your feelings with your school counselor. Now remember, you've broke through and got that child to express their thoughts and feelings with you. Do not break that trust. You only give that counselor enough information for them to dig in further. Okay, because you don't want that counselor to accidentally say, well, Miss Bryson said this, this, and this to you. Then that means you've already lost that kid's trust. Okay, so, tell the counselor, listen, I don't want to break this child's trust. I can only give you so much that I want you to look into a little bit further. Okay, and always remember not to share. If you feel like you need to be debriefed, go talk to the principal to debrief yourself. Do not debrief yourself to other teachers, because that goes back to the trust. Okay, I would suggest, because if the counselor is going to do the investigation, let her do the investigation of her own. But if you need to be debriefed, use the principal as a debriefer to debrief what you have just went through with the child, whatever it is. Just be careful not to share the information with other teachers, because number one, they do have the right to privacy, and that even though that you may feel that they might be in harm, you still got to be careful what you do with that information. Okay. Okay, so the second E here is the self-help or other supports. And that's going to be something that the counselor can really help with the overall. Is the camp is to provide supportive, natural, informal help through the community, such as peer support and peer mentors. Especially if you have another kid that might be going through the same situation, the counselor is going to know this information. That counselor can pair this child and this child together because they're going through the same situation or same thought process or what might be going at home. Without saying, hey, John, Lisa, and Stephanie, I want y'all to be partners here because y'all are having family issues. Well, no, that's not how you do that. It's just you just want to pair them to introduce themselves together, and eventually they will figure out what's going on with them too, and they're going to find ways to work things out and talk things together. Someone that's already been through that kind of situation. So roles and responsibilities for helping a youth is remembering to always gain their trust. Always, always. Parents are a pivotal role when you're working with the children, but in the same sense, it's that sticky situation. You don't want to lose their trust, but if you feel like you need to talk to the parent, that right there goes back to what you observed, not what the child has told you. I've observed her chewing on her fingers, and her nails are down to her quicks. Have you noticed this before? Has this always been this way? That kind of stuff, not based on what the child's told you. And of course, in utmost, as educators, if we feel like a child's being neglected or abused, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You always report it. And I've given you more information about that. Right to privacy. That goes back to debriefing. If you feel like you need to debrief with the principal, and then whoever's going to be investigating it more, just give them what you can provide without expressing what was told to you. When communicating, be very genuine. Be careful not to use their slang, because you may use their slang wrong, and it would not be well. So if they're talking and then they just stop talking, allow that silence. You don't have to feel that silence. Just be there for them. Just being there and not saying anything might be the best thing for them. And of course, also, if good communication activities is when you're not having to make eye contact, sitting side by side making eye contact. If that means going for a walk with them, if that means doing an activity with them, shooting basketballs, throwing football, finding a snack, just a snack and everything else. It's that non-eye contact. It's a good thing to start with communication with. Another thing is, don't compare their life to your own experiences. Just listen to what they're going. Don't say, well, whenever I was that age, I did this and this and this. Well, they're not going to listen to that. They're going to say they're not listening to me and that kind of stuff. You don't have to ask the person to justify or explain their behavior. They're trying to explain it to you. Just listen to them, and that goes back to rephrasing. Am I understanding this right? You're saying this, this, and this. Right there. Make sure that shows them that you're really listening to them and you're really connecting their ideas together and their thoughts together. Watch your body language. When you're sitting there with your arms crossed like this, that's being kind of tendency. If you kind of lean back, relax in the chair, maybe the child can be relaxed to you. But you also have to watch their behavior. If they see you relaxed and they're not listening to me, change your position, lean forward and lean towards them. Leave it no table between you. Leave yourself open, hands out. You're willing to listen. You're willing to help with your hands open. Help them find the language that they're looking for. So if they sit there they're just shrugging their, how is your day? What's really kind of going on with you? And they just kind of shrug their shoulders. Say, are you sad? Are you frustrated? Give them the words. Let them choose from A, B, or C, or D. That kind of thing. Give them some. Language. Also, go back to remember their culture. Remember to use appropriate language and behavior. Make sure the person doesn't feel ashamed of what they feel, of what's kind of going on. Let them talk it out with you. And then supporting their right to make the decision, and especially based on their culture. That's more or less based on their culture. You know, if they decide, well, you know, I need to do it this way because my grandparents would want me to do it this way. And think about if it's a Hispanic child, well, that's their culture. It's going to be something they're going to be going towards on. Ultimately, at the end of the day, each and every day in each school year, the teachers plant the seeds of knowledge to help them for a lifetime. That's something that the kids come back to you and say, oh, I remember we did this and this and in this class, in your class, and it might have been last year and it might have been 5 years ago. You planted that knowledge to them. You planted that opportunity in them that they will always remember. So that's something that we can always remember as teachers.